Miami, and we were trying to get Northeast kids that could afford Miami,
Gotcha.
that were looking at the price tag, and their parents were going, "Oh, that's not too bad." Whereas people down here were like, "Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me." So it was an interesting balance. And then as a coach, the early years, I mean, I wish I knew I wish I knew 20 years, what I know now 20 years ago, and I would have been a really good coach. But so you as
Just
a
teach me everything. Just teach me
you
everything.
know so you live and learn. I mean, Miami is a hot environment. Up north is a totally different environment. You can recover quicker, all those kinds of things. What you can handle down here, what you can handle up there, are two different things. So again, and then my coaching philosophy changed
I was gonna ask you,
toward the
yeah.
end. So I use a lot of my stuff, especially track stuff, is geared off of the English method of Ovett, Coe. They the English method that I think Dr. Martin, in Atlanta, also utilized. And actually, there's a book on it. He wrote a book on that. But what I saw was athletes that could run very good in 800 meters and all the way run up to very good at 5,000 meters. So I was like, wow, that's what I want. I want a widespread people that can be good in a wide variety of things. Because typically myself, I was a long guy. I used to hate to run the 800. I used to even the mile. I was like, because I was never trained in it. So I think back then they just didn't do it. Now I train, no matter if you're slow, fast, whatever, I train you in all those areas so you benefit and you become even better runner. Yeah.
So when you said that it switched, what did it go from at the beginning towards the end? What the
Well,
beginning were you more like you're a
yeah,
shorter distance runner or you're a longer? You were saying?
no. And in the early on was pretty much my experiences.
Okay.
It was my experiences, and what I had success doing, I was throwing at these guys and gals, and trying, and we had bits and pieces. The other part of a runner that's pretty cool is early on I had a guy named Chris Miller who was tough as nails. He's in Deerfield Beach area, and he went to Deerfield High School. And he probably would have went to Florida except for his senior year. He went after the race and probably about 20 meters from the finish line did a plant. Probably would have went to Florida, but we got him, and man, he was a tough runner. So mentally, I would, just to give you an idea of how tough this guy was. Coaches typically ask, how on race day, how you feeling? Miller, how you feeling, Chris? How you feeling today? Race day. Coach, it's race day. I feel great every day. It's race day. I don't care. It's race day. I feel great. That was the mentality of this guy. So, and like I said, personally myself, I had coaches all over the place, but I worked hard enough that no matter what the coach threw at me, I was going to be successful mentally, physically, and all that kind of stuff. So you can take a grain of salt with the coaching. Coaching, yes, to get a good coach is very, very good. But you got to make something out of the situation as well. So it's interesting. But I did that. I did that early on, and then you know, as you live. I even had kids come up to me. I had kids that I recruited from Maryland. I was from Maryland. They're like, Coach, we're talking to the BC runners, and they're running a lot more than we are. And then the other thing I did, which I thought was I don't know if I did it, but the kids came to me and they're like, Coach, we're thinking about going to Boulder, Colorado this summer to train. And I'm like, oh man, that's huge. You guys are not only gonna love it, but you're gonna see other people. And at that time, Boulder was the mecca for distance runners in the U.S. So they went to Boulder and they're like, Coach, those guys are working much harder than we are. We can work much harder. So you're like, great, okay, let's work much harder. But they had to see it. If I would have probably put that on their plate, they would have probably maybe balked, maybe not, but they saw what other people were doing, and they're like, our threshold for work just moved up because we're seeing what these guys are doing, these guys and gals are doing in Boulder. And I mean, we had guys and gals. I take some pride in a couple of guys. One guy, Matt Mulvaney, who was what was he, like a 450 miler in high school, best mile. He ran 30 flat for 10,000 meters at Miami. And he was a great cross country. He was an all region cross country guy. So here's a guy that, he didn't even contact us. He just showed up. I don't know, if I'm going to be good. Melanie Schultz was another gal that just showed up. She was a 535 miler out of Michigan. Just showed up at our door. She ends up running 444 for the mile, 16 flattish for 5K. Only athlete in school history of Miami make the NCAAs in cross country. I mean, she was a beast. And again, if you don't allow these kinds of kids to come into your program and you don't develop these kids, they go somewhere else and maybe they get developed, maybe they don't. But opportunity is pretty significant.
What in terms of recruiting? I know you said you guys kind of had the shotgun approach, but what
Right.
tips? Like a lot of high school athletes, like you said, if you go to it's the opportunity. If you go to a smaller school, you might not be recruited by the bigger D1 schools. What can they do to prepare or like better expose themselves?
So the biggest thing is just make sure you do expose yourself, and the best way to expose yourself, if you have 5 or 10 schools you're looking at, email the coach, send the coach a handwritten letter, do something. I tell you, I would nowadays emails. There's so many emails. You send that coach a handwritten letter. Believe me, you're going to be one of the few people that do. And he or she will probably open that letter, and you will have, it's just like anything else. What is getting me noticed? Is it my times? Is it this? You got to remember at Miami, when I was at Miami, now that was a while ago, but I was probably getting at least 150, 200 emails a day. And now it's probably even more. So not just recruiting, but emails from all over. And you got to weed through that in your day and figure out who's good, who's not good. You're getting nowadays. You're getting texts in that regard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What makes you stand out from everybody else? Why am I going to spend 5 minutes to look at your resume versus someone else's resume? Or why am I going to look at, so if you're sending an email, make sure you put in the headline, what time, what time, if you have a very good time, put that up front. If whatever your positive stuff is, make sure it's hit the coach over the head with it. Or again, do something out of the ordinary. Nobody writes handwritten letters anymore. Write them a letter. Do something out of the ordinary to be seen. Make sure that they're aware of your interest. I can't tell you, I've probably given 2 or 3 athletes scholarships because they just hounded me to death. Because one thing was, I was like, wow, they must either like Miami a lot or they really want to be a part of our program. So they just hounded me to death. They were decent athletes. Surprisingly enough, one's a Division I coach, and the other is a multimillionaire designing webs or apps. So I mean, persistence. And the thing is, I was telling you earlier that my boy that was an average runner, high school runner, probably at best. He goes to a junior college. He becomes an All-American. He was an All-American in 5,000, 10,000. He went to a school which was, it fit him well academically, and it fit him athletically well. And he got to do all the same things that Division I athletes. He got to travel. He got to be with teammates. He got to run at the national championships. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he had the whole team experience going to a junior college, for a couple of years before he went to, finished out his 4-year degree at a school that didn't have a men's program, but he still got that experience. There's places for everyone, no matter what your level is at. If you want to run, there's places for you.
I wish I'd known all this feedback when I was going through the
Yeah,
recruiting
no.
process. I mean, none of my parents had, gone to college. I was definitely the first one getting recruited. So, yeah, I remember when I visited you. I mean, it seems so serious. And
Yeah.
Not that you're not serious, but
no, and the same thing for me. I was the first, person in my family to go to college, and the running aspect, the fun. No, this is a little funny, but the running hilarious. So my dad worked in D.C. He was an electrician. He worked in like all the federal buildings, the White House, all those kinds of things. And Catholic University was there, and we were, we're a Catholic family. So and Catholic was pretty good back then. And he went to the Catholic coach, and your son can't make our team. So your son can't make our team. They did have some unbelievable milers, Robinsons, and just great guys. But funny thing be told, they happened to be in our same conference. So I used that from so I used that as motivation. So my junior year, when we won the conference championship in cross country, I beat all but one of their athletes. Now I didn't go up to the coach and say, "Hey, hey, look at me now."
Yeah.
But
it speaks for itself, though.
Yes, you gotta motivate yourself to want to do better. And if you got to use things like that, you got to use things like that. You gotta motivate yourself to compete.
That actually leads me to the next thing. So I know when we're training, at least from the experience working with you, I'm never gonna forget the one workout where you kicked us off the track because we were running too fast. But then when we go to training seems like hit the paces, hit this is that.
Right.
But then in the racing philosophy, you're kind of just like, just go for it, like race.
Right.
Tell me a little bit of like,
well,
you know what I mean?
It depends on the race. Now, I was a very aggressive racer because I trained hard enough and I had the confidence enough to be aggressive. And typically in that era when I ran the 60s, 70s, there was more aggressive racing because people were fit. I mean, people were really fit. They were not. Going back to my last years at Miami, Tim Harris was that mold. He was very confident in his abilities, and he led every 800 he got in. That was just his mentality. That was his race. And I can't tell you how many college coaches are like, man, I love the way that guy runs. But